A smoking, smouldering dumpster fire. 2023's The Flash condenses everything wrong with the modern superhero film into one horrendous package and adds a garnish of insulting real world associations. This is easily one of the stupidest and most redundant movies I've ever seen in my life. Rather than committing to the source material, Warner Brothers instead commit to keeping on Ezra Miller, who is not only one of the worst comic book castings of all time, a hill I'm happy to die on, but is also a mentally unstable lunatic who has no business still being employed in the first place. The level of irritation I feel that Henry Cavill was unceremoniously deleted from his dream role that everyone loved him in, the movie he starred in being completely unnecessarily brought back to be butchered, and then the guy who is actually a proven scumbag is kept on in his role he never should have gotten to begin with, is indescribable. Whilst this movie is stuffed to the brim with fan service, which we'll get to, the real way to service the fans is to give us both a good, well crafted story that understands and respects the legendary characters it depicts. To say this fails at that is an understatement. This is an incompetent, terrible, unbelievably botched adaptation of the Flashpoint Paradox storyline, with the actual heart and novel original concepts gutted and replaced with hollow, soulless cash grabbing and nostalgia baiting fanfiction. The sheer audacity of the cameos we see here is almost impressively brazen. It's like the film expects the mere sight of my old favourite characters, mangled and malformed by the aggressively awful CGI, will make me forgive this travesty outright and say, well, we got to see X and Y again, so it was worth it in the end. Well, I refuse to suckle this mangy corporate teat parading the synthetic puppets of my heroes in front of me. Was it nice to see Michael Keaton again with his classic suit, iconic Batmobile and theme, and one liners? Yeah. And honestly, I even kind of liked how his character was done here, except that they made him a bit of an idiot at times. Does it in any way salvage this dung heap? Fuck no. Was it cool to see Supergirl? I mean, no, not really, given that she wasn't even supposed to fucking be there, and that her costume was terrible, her design was shit, her CGI was poor, and Sasha Calle was very poorly cast, in my opinion. Not to mention that we get next to no development for her. She is clearly directly inspired by the Flashpoint Superman, who is a heart wrenching character to say the least, and all of the nuance and psychological, philosophical themes are completely gone. She is a cardboard cutout of a character. Was it nice to see Batfleck again? Yes, except that they made him a buffoon with stupid gadgets and he was in the film for like 5 fucking minutes. Wonder Woman was just there for like 10 seconds, and in that time they somehow managed to emasculate Batman by making him parrot the pandering nonsense that people who both dislike and fundamentally misunderstand him as a character think as the truth, thanks to him holding the stupid lasso. He also killed people, which is annoying to see. Now, Keaton also killed people, though he did this in the original movies too, so it's more forgivable to me, though still not ideal, as not killing is utterly integral to who Bruce is. Now, I know part of what someone is going to say, but Batfleck killed in Batman vs. Superman. Yeah, a movie that came out in 2016, when it is so well established and well written that Batman not killing people is absolutely crucial to who he is. Batman 1989, I can forgive that because it came out in 1989. We should have learned from the mistakes made decades ago, but yet no. All we can do is reuse older assets without improving them and taking away everything that made them good in the first place. Now, speaking of the other cameos, I almost can't believe how bad they are. Now, there's this embarrassing scene where the worlds in the multiverse collide, and the graphics resemble that of a fucking PS1 game, and that is honestly being generous. Within it, we get many cameos purely for the sake of fan service that serve absolutely no purpose to anything. These include Nicolas fucking Cage as Superman fighting a weird laser spidey thing, Adam West's Batman for like a second and you don't even see him properly, and I think there are other ones in there, but I don't really care, to be honest with you, because most insultingly of all, we get Christopher Reeve's Superman and presumably Helen Slater's Kara Zor-El. Now, you might think it's pretty cool to see these legends again. Well, it might be, were they not being rendered with the technical slop of an intern. If you're going to pay tribute to late legends like Christopher Reeve by directly showing them in the fucking movie, maybe do so in a manner less tasteless and tacky. How in the hell was that let through? Man of Steel did it far, far better in 2013. 2013! Speaking of Man of Steel, I think the trailers led us all to believe that Zod was going to be the main villain, or at the very least we get to see plenty of screen time given to him, Faora Ul, and the rest of the content in that film. Far from it. He is effectively nothing more than another cameo, though he does actually have direct relevance on the story. And while he commendably isn't made a weak bitch, he was still extremely underwhelming. A criminal waste of Michael Shannon, and just highlights how unneeded the desecration of the original film truly is. I almost don't even want to talk about the rest of this stupid film. It's actually kind of painful to recall in enough detail to talk about. Ezra Miller as Barry Allen is better than he was in Justice League, but I am convinced that that's only because he was given the main focus of the film, and not because he's gotten any better at portraying the character. Now, Miller may be a scumbag and a criminal, or rather he is, but he is far from the worst actor alive. That said though, his performance as Alan is fucking terrible, and like I said, it truly is one of the stupidest castings ever. Having one of him would be bad enough, but fucking two! That might be sadism in its purest form. I almost forgot to mention, in a film about The Flash, might be helpful if you could make the fucking running not look like the most pathetic, hilariously ungodly thing ever created. Just a thought. Now, he has a couple of scenes where he displays somewhat convincing emotion and ability, but his stilted, supposedly charming awkwardness that is extremely unrealistically effective with girls and women is so aggressively unfunny and so utterly opposing to what Barry is supposed to be that I had to hold my head in my hands at times from the sheer cringe. His relationship with his parents is so painfully bland and generic and underdeveloped. There is no realistic progression of his past counterpart, and he's just there for consistent comedy and somewhat of an appalling audience surrogate. His suit was a complete joke, with the same dire CGI, and even the design was fucking ungodly. And don't even get me started on the suit that the past self ended up making. It is just shit. As for the plot, I cannot be bothered to go into too much detail, because I'd be putting more care in than the writers did. Suffice it to say, everything good about Flashpoint is gone. Reverse Flash, literally a perfect villain in the animated Flashpoint Paradox film, is not even in the fucking movie. The question of who actually did kill Barry's mother not even coming up once. Really? Really? The fucking greatest detective alive didn't think to say, hey, maybe we should look into who actually did kill your mother, because that would prove your father's innocence pretty effectively. But no, it's just not even fucking mentioned. Now, the Flashpoint universe itself, from Thomas Wayne to the war between Wonder Woman and Aquaman, is entirely fucking removed and replaced with a poor imitation of past better movies with poor imitations of past better characters inhabiting it. The dark, mature, and thought-provoking tone, the issues, and the conflicts are just entirely obliterated. It is made so painfully obvious that the film was only even made as a cash grab, and the Flashpoint storyline was chosen as a medium to shove as many references as possible into our faces, because that's what we need in 2023, a shitty, terrible CGI superhero movie about the fucking multiverse. Wow, because we haven't had enough of those already. The only real emotional beat in the entire thing that worked at all is Barry's relationship with his mother, but as I mentioned, it is so painfully generic and underutilized. The entire script is bafflingly fucking stupid, and the audience are treated like their brains are automatically turned off upon entering the cinema. There are so many contrivances, plot holes, and moronic missteps, but quite possibly the worst is right near the end. Barry is specifically trying to avoid interactions with anyone, especially his mother, and revert the past to its original self. To do this, he could simply have removed the bean tin from her trolley at super speed and put it back on the shelf. Instead, he literally goes to her, talks to her, and removes his hat and glasses. Now, somehow, his own fucking mother doesn't recognize the guy who looks exactly the fucking same as her son, but with a different haircut. And of course, is super nice to him, because that's how it always goes in these terrible generic screenplays. I mean, she literally says, "I know I'm just some random woman in a shop, but do you want a hug?" Like, are you fucking kidding me? Why would Barry do this? In the words of Dark Viper AU,
no one can be this dumb!
Barry then somehow expects the future to be returned completely to normal, and is even elated when the security footage in court has magically changed to prove his father's innocence, somehow not understanding that things are obviously still not fixed. Now, I know this was an excuse for the George Clooney cameo at the end, and while that was a little funny, and I commend Clooney for his humility in coming back as a joke that points fun at his famously terrible role, it is still not excusable for story purposes. If you're going to have a cameo, don't include it at the cost of the entire fucking plot. That is not a good idea, film. There is so much more I could say. The comedy is insufferable. It almost always hurts to watch. The dialogue is terrible. The CGI is on the level of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania for the entire film. But honestly, this just makes me sad more than anything else. There were so many times during this where I thought, damn, these are imitations of the characters I love in an imitation of a story I love. I want to be invested. Hell, at times I was invested momentarily due to the associations or themes of some scenes. However, it's all a farcical, sloppy, inexcusably incompetent train wreck masquerading as the storylines we DC fans all know and love. We deserve so much better than this because the source material is. And for reasons beyond my comprehension, these fucking companies are ignoring both it and us and are determined to force us to consume this bilge. And that goes for both Marvel and DC now. I will close this review in the words of Heels vs Babyface, and you'll already have seen this if you watch my channel. There is a YouTube short where I actually include this quote. But whether you've heard of him and or like him or not, I think it rings true nonetheless, and it feels especially appropriate here.
We are living in the most pathetic timeline possible, where companies are going out of their way to make sure that the customers don't get what they want.
You said it, Az. You said it.